Um, and I'd like to go ahead and open us up with a prayer to begin this service. So if you'll join me. Dear Lord, it feels funny to be sitting here praying to you into a microphone, but I just want to join with my friends here who are here for this service, and we just want to say, please come in. We want to be real with you. We want to be real, and help us to learn about how to walk through this world with all of its challenges with you. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Here goes. In January, Josh asked me to take a Sunday and speak on one of the Psalms. And I just want to say thank you, Josh, because it's been a great exercise. I've been thinking about this for months, literally. For you who are new to our church, every year Josh Christensen, our pastor, settles on a theme or a book from which to teach. And this year he chose the book of Psalms. The Psalms are a little like the inside jacket of an old record album, the kind where they included the lyrics to every song. The book of Psalms is 150 poems or song lyrics from some of the Bible's top songwriters. You know David's 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table for me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's the 23rd Psalm, and that's, those are some of the words that we all just know now after all these years. Some of them so famous. And my sermon isn't about the 23rd Psalm, but I wanted to read those words to you just as a balm for all of us. But as I said, Josh asked me to take a week, and he gave me the option to pick a psalm from which to speak. And at the time, I had heard somewhere that Psalm 20 was about victory. My real job is a coach and teacher at Rollins College. And in that capacity as a coach and teacher, I often have the chance to think about what victory looks like. So I asked if I could work from Psalm 20. And Josh gave me the go-ahead, and here we are. Today's text is Psalm 20, and the subject is victory. In particular, how to recognize it. It hasn't been hard to find examples of victory to use in this sermon. In fact, John Cravey provided one the other day with a Facebook post. John's post acknowledged the difficulty of our nation's circumstances and proposed a solution to the struggles from his perspective. The Facebook post read, "You know what I really need now in all this mess is fried dill pickles and Marie Osmond singing Paper Roses." Yep, that's it. So amid the mess that our country is in, fried pickles and paper roses would have been a win for John Cravey. And I have to agree, John wasn't asking much, and his solution was constructive. I call that victory. In this case, it is the victory of low expectations. But we want to explore more serious definitions of victory, and even take a look at what the Bible says about some of them. And just so you know exactly where I will be coming from, let me give you a spoiler alert. To quote Kevin Brune, God wins. To look at that, let's start with Psalm 20 and what victory may have looked like to David when he wrote that psalm. Psalm 20 reads like one part wedding toast and one part fireside chat. Here it is. Psalm 20, for the director of music, a psalm of David. May the Lord answer you when you are in distress. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help from the sanctuary and grant you support from Zion. May he remember all your sacrifices and accept your burnt offerings. May he give you the desire of your heart and make all your plans succeed. May we shout for joy over your victory and lift up our banners in the name of our God. May the Lord grant all your requests. Now this I know, the Lord gives victory to his anointed. He answers him from his heavenly sanctuary with the victorious power of his right hand. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. They are brought to their knees and fall, but we rise and stand firm. Lord, give victory to the King. Answer us when we call. And now, here's a paraphrase of the first half of that psalm, and see if you can hear the wedding toast in it. In this life, you may find that things get tough. When they do, may all your decisions go right. When circumstances go wrong, really wrong, may God himself rescue you. May you have the clear sense that your victory comes straight from God, that his hand is on you all the way. May God remember all you've given up to get here. May he recall all the times you did things the right way for the right reasons, and may he reward you for them. May he give you your heart's desire. May he turn your every step into big gains. May we cheer and fly the flag over God's rescue for you, because God heard you and answered. Can you hear the toast? I can hear a little muzzle tough kind of coming at the end of that. The psalmist is describing a certain kind of victory, the kind where even in tough situations, everything turns out well. In King David's life, that victory probably looked a lot like when he defeated Goliath. And then for us, that might look like other things. In school, in the toughest classes, it might be straight A's. In football, against your toughest rival, it would be calling all the right plays and winning by 50 points. In investing, it would be investing your last few dollars in a little-known stock that eventually sets you up for life. Call it the victory of winning big. The second half of the psalm describes a different kind of victory. The scene shifts. Now the scene is a fireside chat. A wise old woman speaks to a young man who is destined to be king one day, and she is coming to a conclusion. Now I know, she says, and she pauses for dramatic effect. She's old and bent, but energy flows from her eyes. Now I know, I am certain, and I want you to understand this because it is the most valuable thing I have to pass along to you. This I know, the Lord gives victory to the one he's touched, and he has touched you. When you call, he will answer straight from heaven, as if with his very hand. And that answer will be clear and practical. You can't miss it. Again, she pauses, and she locks his eyes with hers. There are those who trust in military. There are those who trust in industry and commerce. But we, the light from the fire plays on her face, we trust in the name of the Lord our God. Armies and economies will collapse and fall, but thanks to him, we rise and stand upright. In the moment when it becomes clear that neither an army or the economy can bail us out, our trust in God can make us stand tall. In these times that we're in right now, this is worth remembering. As we've seen examples of standing tall. I don't know all their details, but I believe that John and Terry Cravey, and again, I'm sorry to pick on you, John. I believe that John and Terry Cravey are showing us how. They spent 10 years building their printing business. But when COVID hit, their business almost completely dried up. Yet they stayed open and kept their staff on. In the midst of the collapsed economy, they continued to trust the Lord. Through all of this, I would have to bet that their staff saw two people standing upright, trusting the Lord despite the circumstances. Now, Psalm 20 is a short psalm. It's just 9 verses. And it does a nice job of describing two kinds of victory. But there are so many other types, subtle ones, victories that we need our eyes wide open to see. For the rest of our time together, we want to talk about some types of victory that we can look for in our world today. And I hope it will help open our eyes to the victories that are occurring all around us. Even before COVID-19, I saw an example in Texas. Our team was there, our sailing team was there in Galveston to compete against schools from the Southwest. It was February. The air was cold and the wind was blustery. One of our competitors was a young woman sailing for her school, Texas Tech, and she was having a hard day. The conditions were tough. She'd had difficulty with her boat's rigging, and she and her crew had finished last in just about every race. Between races, I could see she was down, and I struck up a conversation with her. At one point, the subject swung around to what her friends back home were doing at that particular moment. She said 95% of them are probably watching YouTube. And I said, and here you are out here doing something hard. She kind of smiled at that. For the rest of the competition, she didn't appear down on herself again. Her finishes in the races didn't improve, but she seemed to see that just competing and doing something hard was a victory. And she found herself what I would call undefeated. Another example, again on the water. I saw this one on the water with my class this spring. For most of my students, learning to sail is a true adventure. They put down their phones and we get them out on the lake and in the lake. For many of them, this is a first. Getting in the lake is one of the first things that they learn. In fact, their first time in a boat, they're directed to capsize the boat. That is, tip it over, flip it. And in doing so, they find themselves with the boat on its side and with them in open water on a pretty big lake. The object is that the first thing that they learn is don't panic and the skill of riding a boat. It is truly a rite of passage. It is adventure. And when they get the boat upright and they hear their classmates on shore cheering for them, it is truly a victory. But failing to do so can at first seem humiliating. It can seem like utter defeat. In fact, failing to do so is not defeat, but that's hard for them to understand if they don't have the full picture. And you see this when they struggle. One girl, as she struggled, unable to get the boat upright, repeated over and over, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." She didn't have anything to apologize for, but she felt defeated and shame over what she viewed as her personal inadequacy. A voice inside of her was accusing her. And we've all heard a mocking voice like this. A mocking voice sounds to me like a song lyric, and it sounds like a giant. The giant's calling out my name, and he laughs at me, reminding me of all the times I've tried before and failed. The giant keeps on telling me time and time again, boy, you'll never win. You'll never win. But that mocking voice doesn't know we have someone else in the boat. And I need to say that again. The mocking voice doesn't know we have someone else in the boat. In my sailing classes, that someone else is a classmate of theirs. And I have primed the classmate. They know what's needed when they go to help. And in this particular case, the struggling student is named Nicole. And her classmate in my boat is named Caitlin. Nicole can't get the boat upright. She tried her hardest, but she was nearing her end and she was tiring. Caitlin, I said, are you ready? And Caitlin jumped off my boat like a superhero and swam to help Nicole. Together, they got the boat upright, and Caitlin pulled Nicole into the boat. And these two people who had never spoken to each other in class before high-fived and hugged as their classmates on shore cheered. It is by design that the person in the water with the boat is allowed to work at righting the boat almost to the point of exhaustion. In pushing themselves to that point, the kids learn about themselves. They learn that they can get weary, but keep trying. They learn that the life vest will always keep their heads above water. And some learn that only with the last bit of effort does the mast come up and the boat right itself. And some reach their limits and find that only with a helper coming alongside is it possible to right the boat. And I think that this is a sketch of what God does for us with Jesus. He sees us struggling. When we come almost to the end of ourselves, we know ourselves better than ever. And he sends his son to help us to do what we couldn't do ourselves. We reach our end, but find that what had looked like defeat proves to be victory. In great stories of victory, there is often the thread of someone coming to the end of themselves. They are often the best kind of stories. If there is no struggle, there is no story. In our lives, if you believe Kevin Brune, and I do, the end of the story is already written. God wins. Our former pastor, John Christensen, gave us a similar message many years ago that we still hold on to. It was October of 1988, during my torrid love affair with Janie Moore, now Janie Herbster. Life threw us a curveball that brought us to what seemed like our end, and we went to speak with John Christensen. We explained the situation, and John told us words that reassure us to this day. God is writing a story in the stars with your lives. And we realized that it would eventually all turn out for the best. God works all things together for good. In a time as bleak as this one in our country, that is worth remembering. God will win. He will work all things together for good. We are at times baffled by the events, and it becomes clear quickly that we don't have the vision to see and understand as God does. As Jamel Bowie said, as we try to understand the forces at work in this country, we should do so with profound humility about the limit of what we can know and what we can foresee. As people, we sense we are being brought to the ends of ourselves. So as we might look for the classmate to swim to us and help us right the boat, we look for God to send help to us. And here is our part in all of this, to try to the end of our strength, trusting that he has help on the way, and knowing he has every intention of writing a great ending to the story. Under the circumstances we see in this world, it can be profoundly challenging to trust that God is writing a story with a great end. That was true for me Saturday morning as I read Betsy Guilford's post about the tragic end to the lives of Emmanuel and Juliana Biella. Emmanuel and Juliana are from the other side of the world. They're from Nigeria. They were farmers. And the husband, Emmanuel, was a Christian pastor there in his homeland, Nigeria. They were parents of 8 kids, aged 1 through 19. Juliana was pregnant with a 9th child. I didn't know them, nor did I even know of them until I read that they were recently gunned down on their farm. The gunners sound like they could have been part of any number of groups: extremists, other tribes, herdsmen, What struck me was the brutal, senseless act that they took Juliana's life with a baby in her belly, and that the other 8 kids are now without parents and perhaps in danger themselves. And I was amazed at the words of a friend of Emmanuel who spoke to those who grieved with words that denied death the victory. He said, "We know at this time Emmanuel would want those who would grieve to place our focus not solely on these tragic deaths, but ultimately on the victory over death that Christ secured for all those who place their faith in him." Death is denied the victory. Their killers are denied the victory. Emmanuel's friend can say to them, "You've taken Emmanuel, but you haven't won." Yes, to everyone's eyes, there is the tangible, unspeakable tragedy. And at the same time, through eyes of faith, those who grieve tell us there's another side to this. We are bent but not crushed, struck down but not destroyed. Though the sorrow may last for a night, his joy comes in the morning. Eyes of faith tell us that Emmanuel and Juliana are gone but not defeated because Christ's victory over death enfolds them. Those eyes of faith are worth putting on as we try to sort through the tragedies and challenges of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the looting, the economy, our divided nation, and the pandemic. Our air conditioning went out last week, and it has only worked intermittently since the second visit by the repairman. But there is a silver lining. In the morning, I hear the birds sing. In our kitchen cabinets, the salad plates and dishes are mixed up. The juice glasses are mixed up with the wine glasses. The plates are tilted and not sitting on each other properly. But there's a silver lining. The kids are putting the dishes away. The pandemic has confined my mom to her building, took a big chunk out of my retirement savings, and has put a number of friends on the brink. But there's a silver lining. My kids are closer. We've each found our own space, and Elijah and I have played catch for nearly 90 days in a row. Our church has not been able to meet face to face for months, but there's a silver lining. We found a new way to worship together. The little chat window on YouTube has transformed our prayers together, and distance can't keep us from worshiping together. The victory of the silver lining. The saying goes, every cloud has a silver lining. Seeing the silver lining is victory. You could argue that it's a gift from God. And Janie has the gift. She keeps a list of the silver linings that have come out of COVID-19. And though we've all struggled with the consequences of this mess, I think most of us can name a silver lining. When we see a silver lining, we defy the odds. We get moved to a place of thanks. And we say to discouragement, you don't get to win. So what can we say about all this? There are times when the victory bar is a low bar to jump, like fried pickles and paper roses. There are other times, as in Psalm 20, when God answers prayers in a way where we win big, and it's plain to see on life's scoreboard. There are times when victory takes every ounce of our strength, and that's still not enough, and God comes alongside so we can get the boat right. Then there are times when circumstances are devastating, and we don't understand, but we put on eyes of faith and see that death's victory is denied. And there are challenging times when we may think we're under a cloud, but God opens our eyes to the silver lining. I don't know that I have any profound conclusion to give you from all of this, but I will share that on Wednesday, Josh told me this. He said, what I want for people walking out of church on Sunday is to feel victorious. Well, good news, Josh. I have felt that way so many times. So many times, circumstances of my life wash over me like a flood. But during our church service, words from a song, words from the Bible, words from your sermon, or something someone says opened my eyes to realize God is alive. God is in the game with me. God is bigger than this moment. And as Kevin Bruin says, God wins. I think that in most situations, if we work our way backwards from God wins, I believe we'll find we're given eyes of faith and can potentially see the victory. I'll close with this thought. It is important to remember that the ultimate victory, Jesus' resurrection, came on the third day after what seemed to be the ultimate defeat. God won that one big. And going forward, it's fair to expect